The most frustrating thing about the useEffect hook is its dependency array. We all have experienced the urge to remove some items from the dependency array and suppress the annoying linter warnings to only make useEffect run when we want. At the same time, we knew it wasn't the right thing to do, as it could lead to nasty bugs, but still couldn't find a better solution. Well, guess what? The solution to our dependency array struggles might be coming soon to React, as React has released an experimental useEffectEvent hook. So let's say we've got this app component and we've got the URL that comes from the useCurrentURL hook. In the real life, this would come from a similar hook from Next Router, React Location, you name it. And since we're building an e-commerce site, we've got the information about the number of items in the cart and about the total value of items in the cart. That's coming from useCart hook, which would use context under the hood. And whenever the URL changes, we want to log a page view. So we'll create this onURLChange function that's going to accept the URL as a parameter. It's going to call logPageView function, and we're going to include information about the cart. So we're going to include cart items count and cart items value. And it's important to stress out that we only want to call this function when the URL changes, not the shopping cart related variables, because adding or removing items to the cart doesn't mean that a new page has been visited. And to actually call this function, we're going to use useEffect, where we're going to call the function with the URL variable. And since we only want to react to changes in the URL variable, we are going to include it in the dependency array. However, as soon as we do that, we're going to get yelled at by the React Hooks ESLint plugin that's going to tell us to include the onURLChange function in the dependency array. But when we do that, we're going to get even more squibble, and React is going to tell us that because the onURLChange function is recreated on every render, we actually make the useEffect run on every render, and it's going to give us two pieces of advice. We can either move the definition of this function inside of useEffect, or we can wrap this function in a useCallback hook. So let's try the first approach and move the onURLChange function inside of the useEffect. But when we do that, React is going to force us to include the cart items count and cart items value variables, which are going to make the effect run whenever these variables change, which is absolutely not what we want. So let's revert these changes and try the second approach. Wrap the function in a useCallback hook. But when we do that, we're going to bump into a similar issue. React is going to force us to include the cart related variables in the dependency array of the useCallback hook, which is then going to cause the useEffect run whenever the cart changes again. So let's revert this piece of code because it didn't do what we wanted either. Now it seems like it's time to accept the defeat, remove the onURLChange function from the dependency array, and suppress the annoying ESLint warning. But I think you would agree that this doesn't feel like the ideal solution and could lead to nasty bugs. For example, let's say you want to react to changes to the query of the URL as well. You pass the query to the onURLChange variable, and with the ESLint warning suppressed, nothing's going to tell you to actually include the query in the dependency array as well. Let's remove the hypothetical bug, bring ESLint back, and talk about the actual solution, the new useEffectEvent hook. useEffectEvent hook evolved from a previous RFC for the useEvent hook, which was limited in scope and changed to useEffectEvent. What you can do with it is that you can wrap your function in it, and it can always read the latest values of your props, state, and context, and it doesn't accept any dependency array. It's important to point out that it's only for events triggered in useEffect hook, and it doesn't work for event handlers like onClick, onChange, and so on. And it's also important to know that it's only experimental, at least at the time of recording this video, so you have to include experimental versions of React and ESLint plugin React hooks. When you wrap your function in the new useEffectEvent hook, you'll immediately notice that a squibble will disappear and React will no longer require you to include it in the dependency array. In fact, if you do decide to include it yourself, React will immediately tell you to remove it from the dependency array. To recap, I'm going to paraphrase from the official React docs. You can think of effect events as being very similar to event handlers. The main difference is that event handlers run a response to a user interaction, whereas effect events are triggered by you from your effects. One last thing, you might be asking what would happen if you actually remove the URL from the parameter like this, and you would have the useEffectEvent read the URL in the same way that it reads the cart related variables. Well, in terms of functionality, nothing would break, but it's less than ideal. Remember, useEffectEvent is like an event handler for events fair in useEffect, so treat it as an event handler. The URL is like the event object in onChange handler and so on. And although nothing will break immediately, this will make your code more prone to errors. For example, if you remove the URL from the dependency array, the linter will not tell you to include it, so you won't react to URL changes. Or, if you were to add some async logic to your useEffect, the URL would correspond to the latest URL, which could have changed, not to the URL at the point of capturing the event. So as a rule of thumb, pass variables you want to react to and read the ones you don't. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content, and feedback of any kind is highly appreciated. With that, thank you so much for watching and take care. Bye.